It's not by chance that you're viewing this video. There's a reason you're here. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Trust the timing of your life and know that you're being led to where you're meant to be. As you stumble on this video, perhaps not by chance, it will serve to awaken your spirit. You may not fully realize it yet, but your very existence is unlocking something extraordinary. Deep within, you felt a peculiar weight, a silent pressure, an unspoken set of expectations. You've often asked yourself, why does it feel like everything depends on me? The answer is simple, because it does. You are the generational key, the one destined to break the chains that held your ancestors back and to build what they could only dream of. You are not here merely to survive. You are here to transform everything. This moment marks your awakening. Together, let us explore 7 divine truths, 7 powerful confirmations that you are, in fact, the chosen one your bloodline has long been praying for. Before we go deeper, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. This message is not just content. It is a divine confirmation for the chosen ones who were born to shift generations. If your spirit resonates with this frequency, type 77 in the comments right now. That number is no coincidence. It is a sacred signal to the Most High and the universe that you are awake, aligned, and ready to step boldly into your role as the generational key. Not everyone will make it to the end of this message, because not everyone was sent to break the chains you were uniquely chosen to break. But for those who remain, clarity, power, and divine instruction await. Wisdom that is intricately encoded into every part of this message. This is not something to hear only once. It is a spiritual blueprint, a multi-layered revelation crafted to awaken what has long been dormant within you. Allow your spirit to lead you and return to this message as often as you are called to, for each encounter will unlock a deeper dimension of purpose, affirmation, and generational authority. Now take a deep breath, ground yourself, open your heart, and receive. You are the one they've been waiting for. Chapter 1. The weight you carried wasn't just yours. Chosen one, the burden you felt for so long was never solely your own. Before you even had the language to describe it, you felt it, that heaviness in your spirit, that invisible pressure hanging in the air, that silent expectation to hold everything together even when the world around you seemed to be falling apart. You were never just a child growing up in a family. You were a soul strategically planted in the middle of a generational battlefield, one that began long before your arrival. From an early age, you noticed the things others ignored. You sensed the tension no one dared to speak about. You could feel the sadness hidden behind the smiles, the fear buried in their voices, the anger that seemed irrational, and the secrets that made the atmosphere feel dense and unspoken. While others laughed as if everything were fine, you were absorbing the pain that was never verbalized. And it wasn't because you were overly emotional or too sensitive. It was because you were spiritually aware. You weren't just witnessing dysfunction. You were carrying the unhealed weight of generations before you. You inherited their silence, absorbed their unspoken grief, and bore the consequences of decisions made long before you were born. And yet through it all, you kept going. That was never weakness, it was sacred strength. You see, you were not sent here to conform to the patterns that have run through your lineage. You were sent to recognize them, to feel them deeply, to confront them head on, and ultimately to break them. That is why you never felt fully at home in environments where others found comfort. That is why certain habits, traditions, or mindsets, though considered normal by your family, always made your spirit feel unsettled. Because deep within, your soul knew this is not how the story's meant to continue. Chosen one, the weight you carried was never a punishment. It was a prophecy. It was divine evidence that you were chosen not merely to survive the storm, but to stop the storm from ever reaching the next generation. You were born as an answer to a cry that came long before your time, a whispered prayer from ancestors who lacked the language, the freedom, or the strength to break the cycles themselves, but who knew with sacred certainty that someone would come after them who could, that someone is you. And yes, it has felt unbearably heavy at times. Yes, it has been lonely. And yes, you've asked, why me? More times than you can count. but now heaven is answering. You were chosen because you are the one who could carry the weight without becoming it, the one who could feel the pain without repeating the pattern, the one who could walk through the fire and still choose love, still choose truth, still choose to rise. God never placed that weight on you to crush you. He placed it on you because he knew you were the one who could carry it and transform it. He did not place that weight on you to break you. He placed it on you to reveal you. You are not weak simply because you have felt exhausted. You are not broken because you have at times felt overwhelmed. In truth, you are the strongest link in a generational chain that has long been waiting for one person, just one, to rise up and break it. And that person is you. You did not merely inherit a name, you inherited a divine mission. And although the road has been difficult, your endurance is living proof that you are already transforming what previous generations could only endure. You are not just carrying a burden, you are carrying a breakthrough. This is the beginning of the unlocking, and it starts with this truth. The weight you've carried was never just your own. It was the sacred sign that you were sent to carry your entire bloodline into freedom. Chapter 2, the cycles had to stop with you. Chosen one, look closely at your bloodline, not merely with your physical eyes, but with the discerning vision of your spirit. There are patterns, deep, generational patterns, that have repeated themselves time and time again. Silent struggles that quietly migrated from one household to the next. Cycles of dysfunction cleverly disguised as tradition. Pain passed down like an inheritance, wrapped in silence and survival. Addiction, poverty, abuse, fear, emotional neglect, betrayal, abandonment, insecurity. The list does not lie. These were not simply personal flaws, they were spiritual strongholds, deep-rooted systems of survival, forged in the absence of healing. Over time, these patterns became normalized, even accepted, because no one before you had the strength, the clarity, or the awareness to question them. Until now, until you. You are the interruption. Where others learned to cope, you chose to confront. Where others numbed themselves, you made the courageous choice to feel. Where others remained silent, you discovered your voice. And where others continued to pass the pain forward, you made a sacred decision. It stops with me. And make no mistake, this is no small act. This is generational warfare. This is what happens when heaven places a divine key within a soul and sends that soul in a locked house, not to blend in, but to set the entire lineage free. But hear this truth clearly. Breaking cycles is not glamorous. It is not always celebrated, nor is it often understood, especially not by those who are still entangled within the very cycles you were called to break. When you began to heal, they said you were acting brand new. When you established boundaries, they called you selfish or rebellious. When you pulled away from chaos to protect your peace, they accused you of thinking you were better than everyone else. But what they could not see, and perhaps still cannot see, is that you were never running from them. You were running toward healing. You were not dishonoring your family. You were honoring your future. You were not rejecting them. You were rejecting the pain that had been silently accepted and normalized for far too long. This is what generational courage looks like. It is lonely, it is heavy, it is confusing. But make no mistake, it is holy work. You were not born to be just another link in a broken chain. You were born to be the break, the divine interruption that heaven inserted into the timeline to declare enough. And yes, you have questioned yourself. You have cried behind closed doors. You have second-guessed your boundaries. You have wondered if you are doing too much. But take a moment now. Look around. Peace is beginning to replace chaos. Truth is taking root. Clarity is forming. That is not coincidence. That is fruit. Every decision you've made, to choose differently, to speak honestly, to walk away from toxic patterns, or to say no to dysfunction, even when misunderstood, has been a spiritual act of rebellion against everything that was sent to keep your family bound. This is what your ancestors prayed for, even if they didn't have the words to articulate it. You are the answer, an unfamiliar answer to those still trapped in survival. But understand this clearly. You were not sent here to be understood. You were sent here to be effective. Chosen one, You never fit in because you were never meant to continue what was already in motion. You were meant to change the entire narrative. You were divinely sent to show your bloodline what it looks like to live in truth, to walk in purpose, and to embody freedom. And make no mistake, future generations will thank you. They will thank you for what you broke, for what you healed, for what you courageously walked away from. Even if your name is never publicly praised, your impact will echo through eternity. Because you didn't just break a cycle, you birthed a legacy. And heaven is watching, heaven is applauding, and heaven is declaring, "Well done, cycle breaker. Keep going." Chapter 3. The isolation was God's strategy. Chosen one, let us speak honestly about the silence, the kind that lingers, stretches, and echoes through the soul. There were seasons when the phone didn't ring, when the messages stopped coming, when the room felt full, yet you felt unseen. Moments when you looked around and realized that no one truly saw you, not for who you genuinely are, nor for the sacred weight you carry. You've had nights where the loneliness grew so loud it reverberated through your spirit, and days when you felt invisible, as though your heart, your thoughts, and your efforts were entirely unnoticed. You've walked through stretches of life where even God felt distant. You prayed, but the heavens were silent. You reached out only to find that the very people you depended on had vanished. And in those moments, you questioned your worth. You wondered if you had been forgotten. But here is the truth. What you thought was abandonment was actually alignment. What felt like rejection was divine redirection. What looked like isolation was sacred consecration. God was never punishing you. He was preparing you. Had you remained surrounded by the noise, by the opinions, the dysfunction, the emotional chaos passed down through generations, you would have been consumed by it. Your spirit would have been shaped by the wrong voices. Your identity would have become entangled in the expectations and limitations of others. You would have dimmed your light just to keep the peace, and in doing so, lost your purpose. So in His mercy, God pulled you aside. He removed the distractions. He stripped away the noise. He allowed the separation not to harm you, but to reveal you. And in that sacred silence, you began to hear your true voice. In the stillness, you started to recognize your own divine frequency. You began to see through the illusion and awaken to the truth of who you are. You questioned the patterns. You woke up. And that was the point. Because had you remained connected to what was familiar, you never would have discovered what was truly possible. Familiarity breeds comfort, but purpose demands clarity, and clarity is often born in the wilderness. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, at times it felt cruel. But chosen one, understand this. God was never hiding from you. He was hiding you. He was shielding you. He was protecting the sacred anointing you carry, preserving it until you were ready to walk in it with wisdom, with strength, and with vision. The world may have overlooked you, but heaven never did. And now that very loneliness that once brought you to tears has built your discernment. It has taught you how to recognize truth in a world filled with mass. That same silence which once felt like abandonment has become your sanctuary. It trained you to hear the voice of God in the stillness, not just in the noise. Chosen one, isolation was never intended to be a life sentence. It was a sacred season, a spiritual cocoon, a divine classroom where God didn't just show you the world. He showed you yourself, not the version the world tried to shape, but the one heaven always knew you were becoming. Because when you rise, and you will not be a copy of what came before. You will not simply inherit a broken script and try to make it work. Instead, you will emerge with new language, new standards, new power, and new vision. You are not a replica of the past. You are a blueprint, a divine design for what comes next. Not only for your family, but for your community and for every generation that will follow you. So do not resent the solitude, revere it. It was sacred. God did not isolate you to break you. He isolated you to build you in peace, in stillness, and in truth, so that you could lead with clarity, confidence, and power. This is your confirmation. Your isolation was never punishment. It was proof, heaven's evidence, that you were being prepared for something far too great to be built in the crowd. Chapter 4. You were given vision others couldn't handle. Chosen one, let's be honest. There are things you've seen in your spirit, visions, strategies, dreams, and revelations that you knew didn't originate from you. Ideas too bold for your upbringing, blueprints too vast for your environment, insights too divine to be man-made. These were not mere thoughts. They were sacred assignments. You tried to share them. You tried to explain them. But the responses you received were often confusion, or worse, laughter. They couldn't understand, not because you were wrong, but because you were early. You were shown things that exceeded their current level of awareness. You were handed keys to doors they didn't even know existed. You were entrusted with a vision for a future that your bloodline never dared to imagine. And yes, it hurt deeply to carry something so immense while being surrounded by people who thought so small. It led you to question yourself. Am I crazy for thinking this big? Am I being unrealistic? But no matter how loud the doubt became, your spirit never let you walk away. Because this wasn't a product of your imagination. It was the mark of your divine assignment. You don't think like them because you weren't sent like them. You were sent to lead, to expand, to shift the very boundaries of what's possible. While others were focused on survival, you were envisioning systems of freedom. While they normalized struggle as a way of life, you were dreaming of generational stability. While trauma and silence were being handed down like tradition, you began to build new foundations. Ones rooted in healing, transparency, and transformation. That is not rebellion, that is revelation. You were given spiritual sight, the divine ability to see not just what has always been, but what could be. And yes, that vision made you a misfit in familiar spaces. But heaven calls you a forerunner, one who goes ahead, one who clears the path, one who builds the future long before anyone else can see it. Your family may not have understood why you thought so differently, why you moved the way you did, or why you refused to accept what they had accepted for generations. But that's because you weren't just living in your generation. You were carrying the healing of generations. They saw a dreamer, but God saw a strategist. They saw someone being extra, but God saw someone being exact. You have been moving in obedience to a blueprint that heaven gave you, even when no one else had the faith to follow. That's why your life has looked unfamiliar. That's why your path has felt lonely. Because you weren't walking a trail, you were forging one. You didn't inherit vision, you birthed it. And that vision wasn't given to impress people. It was given to interrupt patterns. It came to challenge comfort. It came to provoke healing. It came to turn trauma into testimony and survival into strategy. That is divine disruption. And hear this clearly. You were never arrogant for believing there was more. You were anointed to see what others could not, and courageous enough to act on it, even when you were laughed at, misunderstood, criticized, or left out. That is spiritual leadership. That is divine innovation. That is kingdom work. You are not building for applause. You are building for alignment. You are not dreaming for clout. You are dreaming for change. You are not leading from ego. You are leading from eternity. So keep going, keep building, keep believing. Even if no one applauds you right now, know this. Heaven is watching and heaven understands. You are not crazy, you are called. You are not delusional, you are destined. You are not merely different, you are divinely designed. Chapter 5. The attacks were proof of the assignment. Chosen one, there is something you must understand. The battles you faced were never random. The pressure, the pain, the betrayals, the inner wars, they were all connected to something far greater than the moments in which they occurred. Chosen one, there is something you must understand. The battles you faced were never random. Life tried to convince you that you were cursed, forgotten, or not enough. But the truth is this: you were never forsaken. You were marked. You were chosen. And with that divine choosing came a target. Every chosen one is tested, and your tests have never been superficial. They have gone deep, reaching into places no one else could see. You fought battles in silence, cried tears in secret, and faced mornings wondering how you would make it through the day without falling apart. But you did make it through. You kept moving forward when every part of you screamed to give up. You smiled through heartbreak. You stood with grace in rooms where your presence was not welcomed. You remained kind in seasons where life felt cruel, and every bit of it, all of it, was shaping you. Here's what most people won't tell you. The attacks you endured were never because you were weak. They were not punishments for wrongdoing. They were confirmations that you were doing something right. The weight you carried was a reflection of the authority you were born with. The enemy doesn't waste time on people who pose no threat. And you have been a threat since the day you were born. Hell recognized your name before you ever discovered your purpose. That's why the attack started so early. That is why the enemy targeted your identity, your worth, and your confidence. That is why you were repeatedly made to feel like you were the problem, when in reality, you were always the solution. The enemy could not stop your calling, so he attempted to make you doubt it. He couldn't block your purpose, so he worked to distract you from it. He couldn't take your anointing, so he tried to convince you to surrender it yourself. Through fear, through shame, through isolation. But none of it worked, because you are still here, still breathing, still healing, still growing, still rising, still becoming. And that is not weakness. It is not coincidence. It is evidence. Evidence that the assignment on your life is real. Evidence that your purpose is still active. Evidence that your breakthrough is greater than you even realize. Every attack you survived was not random. It was a prophetic sign of what you were born to overthrow. The enemy came hard because you carry something heavy, a heavy anointing, a heavy calling, a heavy responsibility to shift everything that came before you. And while others gave in to the pressure, you endured it. You didn't just survive, you are evolving. You are not a victim of the fire. You are a vessel being refined by it. And now because you remain faithful, because you refuse to quit, you are no longer merely someone who walked through the fire. You are becoming the fire, the kind that burns down generational curses, the kind that exposes every lie ever spoken over your life, the kind that ignites freedom in those who are watching your journey unfold. Let this serve as your reminder. The battle has always been spiritual. You were never fighting for attention. You were fighting for alignment. You were never breaking down. You were breaking through. The attacks were never evidence that something was wrong with you. They were confirmation that something is profoundly right with you, something powerful, something holy, something dangerous to darkness. Chapter 6. You're becoming what they prayed for. Chosen one, take a moment and breathe this in deeply. You are becoming what they prayed for. Not merely the hope of your parents or grandparents, but the fulfillment of your ancestors' most sacred longings. Those who lived generations before you, whose names you may never know. These were the ones who endured unimaginable hardship, injustice, limitations, silence, and the harsh realities of survival. They cried out to a God they did not fully understand, pleading for a change they could not bring to pass within their own lifetimes. Though they may not have had the words to articulate their pain, their spirits groaned with yearning. Though they lacked the tools to build a new world, their hearts held on to hope. Though they never saw the promise fulfilled, they faithfully sowed the seeds of prayer. And that sacred prayer, ancient, powerful, and enduring, landed on you. You were born carrying a weight that, at times, felt inexplicable. You held a vision that seemed far too expansive for the environment around you. You bore a hunger for healing and truth that no one in your immediate circle could quite understand. But this was not merely a matter of personality or disposition. This was legacy. This was your spiritual inheritance. This was the residue of ancient prayers covering your life like a mantle. You've likely felt out of place more times than you can count. Perhaps you've questioned why you care so deeply, why you feel so responsible for repairing what you did not break, or why you are so committed to becoming whole when brokenness is all you've ever known. The truth is, something in your bloodline recognized you as the one who would refuse to settle for the patterns that stole peace from generation after generation. You are the one who stood up and declared, "It ends with me." And that declaration, courageous, unwavering, and sacred, carries cosmic weight. When you made the decision to heal, you did far more than alter the trajectory of your own life. You shifted entire timelines. You became the fulfillment of ancient prayers. You gave form to promises your ancestors made with tears in their eyes and faith burning in their hearts, even when they had no evidence that anything would ever change. You are their answered prayer in living form. You are the dream they were never free to pursue. You are the voice they were forbidden to use. You are the strength for which they were punished when they tried to express it. You are the clarity they longed for but could never articulate. You are the one who took their sacrifice and alchemized it into transformation. Even now, some people may not fully understand what you are doing. They may call you distant, different, dramatic. But understand this, you are not simply doing things your own way. You are divinely reconstructing a new way, a way founded on truth, healing, and sacred alignment. The choices you are making, to love yourself, to forgive where there was only bitterness, to confront what others refuse to face, and to dream beyond mere survival. These choices are not trivial. They are sacred. Even if your family never thanks you, even if they question your path, even if those around you never voice it aloud, know this, your obedience is protecting them. Your healing is lifting them. Your vision is offering them hope, even if they do not yet recognize it. And here lies the sacred mystery. You are not merely carrying the weight of the past. You are actively creating the future. Your children, your grandchildren, and even those not yet born will one day benefit from what you are building in this very moment. The peace you are learning to protect, the truth you are boldly standing in, and the love you are consciously choosing to embody. These are not just personal victories. They are sacred foundations that will ripple through generations. Because you did not merely inherit pain, you inherited purpose, and you made the courageous decision to activate it. Chapter 7, the legacy begins with you. Chosen one, let this truth settle deeply into your soul. You are not a continuation, you are a divine interruption. You are not here to maintain what has been, you are here to transform it. You are a new beginning, sent by heaven to reset what history has repeated for far too long. You were not sent to repeat the story, you were sent to rewrite it. You were not born to fit the mold, you were born to break it, and not out of rebellion, but out of revelation. You saw what others could not. You felt what they chose to ignore. You questioned what they passively accepted. And that questioning was not defiance, it was destiny. You are the first in your bloodline to truly see, not merely with your physical eyes, but with your spirit. You saw the silent pain buried beneath smiles, the generational dysfunction passed down as tradition, and the fear that was cleverly disguised as wisdom. You felt what others had become numb to. You recognized the cycle, and instead of continuing it, you stood boldly before it and declared, "It ends with me." And that choice was not easy. It cost you comfort. It cost you relationships. It cost you the illusion of belonging and the safety of fitting in. But in return, heaven granted you clarity. Heaven gave you strength. Heaven entrusted you with divine assignment. You chose healing over harm. You chose faith over fear. You chose purpose over pain. You chose truth over tradition. You chose to remain awake, even when the numbness of denial seemed easier. And in making those choices, you became the blueprint, not only for your own healing, but for your family's future. Your life became a living testament to what happens when someone says yes to God, yes to freedom, yes to becoming who they truly are, rather than who they were conditioned to be. Every quiet decision you made, every tear you cried behind closed doors, every moment you chose to break a pattern when no one else was watching, it all mattered. Heaven saw it, heaven recorded it, and heaven is preparing to reward it. Because of you, the narrative is shifting. Because of you, what was once normal no longer has the power to remain. Because of you, love is replacing fear, truth is replacing silence, and peace is replacing chaos. One day your children, or your spiritual children, will look back and say, it started with them. They were the first to break the chain. They were the first to love without conditions. They were the first to stop running and begin rising. They were the first to remember who they truly were. Your name will carry spiritual weight, not because you were perfect, but because you were obedient. Because in moments when it was hard, you chose not to quit. Because when fear surrounded you, you kept moving forward. Because when everything within and around you urged you to break down, you made the bold decision to build anyway. This is legacy. Legacy is not merely what you leave behind when you're gone. It is what you live now in real time. It breathes through your choices, echoes in your voice, and radiates through your very presence. And do not, even for a moment, doubt this truth. Heaven has been watching. Hell has been trembling. And the earth is about to witness the full power of what happens when the generational key finally turns. Because you are not merely carrying the key, you are the key, the one your ancestors prayed for, the one your lineage cried out for, the one who stepped into divine alignment, turned the lock, and opened the door that no man can shut. And if you're still hungry for more chapters to this journey, or a visual concept for a video or thumbnail, just say the word. I'm here and ready to help bring it all to life. Thanks for watching. Here ends this video. Take a moment to like, share, and subscribe if you find this video interesting.